Hi, good evening, Sharai. Thanks for being in class. We're going to start the class with you, right? This is going to be like the introduction for the next topic. Actually, today should be like part of the second unit, all right, yet. But we are going to go to the next part in case there are no many doubts. So today I'm going to ask you the doubts and the questions you may have related to the first two topics in general, all right, all lessons, which are going to be punctuation and let's say transitional words and phrases. If you have questions, specific questions related to those two lessons, units that we covered, then we're going to try to explain and solve those doubts. In case that you don't have any questions, I'm going to be kind of sure that you're going to know how to use those elements so that we can go to this next part, which is the structure, all right, of the essay itself. And this is going to be very important because as you can see, we have four different presentations here. One is for the definition and types of essay, a very general overview, the introduction, right, of the essay, every step to build up the introduction of the essay, the body, and the conclusion as well, right? So four different presentations for Unit 3. For Unit 2, it was only one because it was condensed into one presentation, right? They were only words. But here we have more information. That's why we have four different ones. Now, we can start with you then, Sharai. Let me ask you that, right? What I was mentioning. Do you have any specific questions in terms of punctuation? Do you understand when to use commas, when to use periods, semicolon, colons, dashes? And do you understand, for example, how to use the fanboys, right? We're at kind of connectors, transitional words and transitional phrases. Do you have any questions or doubts related to that? Sharai, let me know, please.
No, teacher, I don't have questions. Thank you. Everything is clear.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sharai. Thanks for letting me know. When your partners are in, I'm going to ask her the same. Of course, if everybody, right, understood everything, there is no need to keep working with those two lessons or topics, right? So we're going to start with the next one. But again, just to be sure, well, actually, before that, I'm going to share the new link. Remember that if there are no questions, we're actually going to start with there you go, with a new lesson, with a new unit, which is going to be the structure of the essay. So the link is in the chat, all right? You can go there and have it opened so that if you, well, when we start working, you're going to go write your examples over there, all right? And I'm going to copy and paste it one more time, but I think that Lourdes saw that. So, Lourdes, I was asking Sharai about the previous lessons, all right, or units. I want to be sure that you don't have any questions related to them. If you have some, we can clarify those today. If not, we're going to start the next unit because I think it's going to be a long one. But let me know, Lourdes, do you have any questions related to punctuation and transitional words and phrases? Do you understand how to use them all?
Hi, teacher. Yes, everything is clear. I don't have questions, so everything it's all right.
Great. Thank you, Lourdes. Thanks for letting me know. So that's great. Okay, so far I think we're going to go to the new unit. It would be great that everybody is here now so that I know everything until, I don't know, 7:15 at most. And then we can start. But again, the only thing that is going to be added, I don't have the criteria yet. All right, you only have the 30-week in class activities. Remember that you have until midnight, right? Today, until midnight, to upload your in-class activities for Unit 2 and your second essay. The only thing that we're going to add here, right? We're going to keep all the criteria, but we're going to add a fourth one, a fifth one, it would be a fifth criterion, which it would be a structure. I'm going to be expecting, right, that you're going to use the structure, this specific structure for, let's say, the next essay, which is going to be next Monday. So If everything is clear so far, I think that with you, I can start this presentation. If your partners have some questions or extra questions, we're going to go back, no problem with that. So let's begin with you. It says essay structure. What is an essay? Let's read the short definition of essay, please, Sharai.
Okay. What is an essay? A short piece of writing on a particular subject.
Thank you very much, Sharai. So it's just like that, right? A short piece of writing, right? And we're saying that this piece of writing has the characteristic that it's about one particular subject. That's mostly, right, the case when we talk about essays. Now, I have some questions for you, and I'm going to start with you, Lourdes. Perhaps I already asked those questions in one of the conversations, but let's try to know what you know about essays. Lourdes, what types or what kinds of essays do you think that there are? Do you know more or less that how many perhaps, or what are the types of essays that there could be in English?
Not really. I think that the only one that I could name is the postulation essay, that it's when the bachelors send their application for universities. But I don't know. I think that I can't remember another type of essay.
Great, thank you, Lourdes. Yes, and that's right. Actually, instead of that word, right, it's going to be the application, right? The application essay. You're right. You need an application essay, right? If you want to apply for a specific scholarship, a specific entrance to universities, right, to colleges. So yes, you're right. And actually also, some people consider that as a different kind of essay, and some other people, as we're going to see in this classification that we're going to manage here in this course, consider that one as part of any of the other types of essay that are more general. And we're going to see that in general, in most places on the internet, all right, some people believe that there are 5 types of essay, even 8 or more. But most of the places, all right, most of the websites and official websites are going to tell you that we have 4 big categories, all right? And that's where we're going to be working today. But before going to the specifics, I still want to know what you know about that. And this is for you then, Sharai. Sharai, what do you believe that are the parts of any essay? Perhaps it doesn't matter if we have, right, types of essay. What are the important parts that we need for the essay?
Well, I think there are 3 parts: the introduction, the body, and conclusion.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Sharai. It's as simple as that, right? Many pieces of writing are going to be composed of those 3, right, parts. You have introduction, the body, right, or the development, right, paragraph or paragraphs, and the conclusion, right, or the summary. So it can vary, all right? It can vary. Sometimes it can be called body or development paragraph or paragraphs, and sometimes it can be called conclusion or sometimes summary, right? So that's very important and interesting to know. The next one is going to be for you, Melissa. We're talking about what we know about essays in general. With Lourdes, we talked about types of essay. With Sharai, parts of the essay. And this question is for you, Melissa. Do you know what is an outline? And what more or less do you know about an outline in essays?
Um, I think it's the example of the structure that has that the essay has to have. I think it gives you an example about the parts that you have to write in the essay. For example, the introduction, the ideas, the arguments, and the conclusion. And it can be only the name of the parts, or it can be also the name of the parts and example. For example, a little essay where you can have mark all the parts of it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Melissa. And good. Yes, you're right. It's going to be like the structure, but in a more detailed way, right? When we talk about parts of the essay, we only mentioned there are three things that we know, right? But when we talk about the outline, this is a more specific structure that we need to follow, right? And that is going to help us write the essay, because the outline is going to be the first thing that many essays are going to ask you to do. You need a good outline in order to work your essay, right? Of course, there are other ways. We're going to work very specifically here in this lesson, even more specific than writing outlines, because I'm going to give you the step by step. But we're going to go to that matter, all right? So with those answers, I know that you have certain knowledge, and we're going to be more precise with certain things that you said by checking this document. So let's go to the next part, actually. There you go. So we have these types of essay. As I told you, some web pages are going to talk about 5, 8, or more types of essay. But in general, most of those types of essay are going to like fit into one of these 4 main ones, which are going to be the argumentative, right? The expository, the narrative, and the descriptive one. So we have 4 main ones. And the one that is in green is the one that we're going to be working together. Why? Because that's the most common type of essay for either international tests, all right, or for works and let's say papers at university. The expository one is also very interesting. Mostly at colleges, universities are going to use that one, not as much as the argumentative. The narrative is going to be more related to literature, right? And the descriptive one, you use it sometimes, all right, but it's again not as used as the previous 3 that I mentioned. So let's begin by understanding, right, all the parts or all the characteristics related to this type of essay. And I'm going to start up with you. Let me take this here. Mariana, read the argumentative essay, please. The skills tested and the example prompt.
Argumentative, forming an opinion via research, building an evidence-based argument. He has the rise of the internet has had a positive or negative impact on education.
Thank you very much, Mariana. So something interesting and important to know here is that this is the type of questions, the type of instruction that you're going to receive in many international tests, all right? And you need either, all right, you need either research or at least something built, right, upon an evidence-based argument. So you need to show something. It's going to be something that shows what you think, what you believe, but you have to be supported by evidence, by important ideas, right? And usually you have 2 options, 3 options, and you have to choose, right? What's the one that stands for you? And you have to defend that idea, right? Sometimes we also call this argumentative essay the persuasive essay, all right? Why? Because you need to persuade the reader that you are right. Okay, so this is the one that we are going to be learning. This is the most important one because of the facts that I was mentioning. Let's go to the expository one, and that's going to be for you, please, Sharai. Expository, please.
Okay, expository skills test, knowledge of a topic, communicating information clearly. Example prompt, explain how the invention of the printing press changed European society in the 15th century.
Thank you, Sharai, right? So this is more precise. This is something that you need to work like on a presentation, right? And this seems that is used a lot at universities. Yes, it is. Because in your essay, you need to prove that you know something specific about a very specific topic as well. Okay, so you're going to present something. That's why it's expository topic or expository essay. The narrative one, please, Lourdes. Let's work that one with you.
Okay, the narrative, create language use, presenting a compelling narrative. Example prompt, write about an experience where you learned something about yourself.
Thank you very much. We also call this type of essay, all right, that is one that is that personal essay. Why? Because as you can see, it's related to something that you're going to tell, right? It's going to be like a story. It could be real. Most of the times it's going to be real because you're going to be related, all right, and relating what happened in a very specific experience that you had. Okay, so that is more and more personal. And in this case, you don't need, of course, evidence. You don't need anything like that. You can give examples, but examples are going to be things that you remember, your own words. You don't need to mention anybody else's examples or evidence, right? No need for that over here. This is only what you believe it is, your opinion, and of course, not only your opinion, but the experience that you had. And finally, descriptive, and that's for you, please, Melissa. Let's read the last one, please.
Okay, descriptive. Creative language use describing sensory details. Example prompt. Describe an object that has sentimental value for you.
Thank you very much, Melissa. So it's very, very similar to perhaps narrative sometimes, but here you're going to describe something in a specific. Can be an object, all right? Most of the time you're going to be describing something like that, something very, very objective. And it's going to be just about talking about that specific thing and just that. Okay, so out of these four, as I told you, the one that is going to be important for us to know is the first one. And you can apply the first structure to all the other structures by just taking away perhaps the evidence. If you don't need evidence, then you're not going to talk about that, but you're going to work with an introduction as well for all of them. You're going to develop your idea in all of them, right? Perhaps here you can say what you're going to talk about related to that experience. Then you're going to describe your experiences in 2 to 3 paragraphs, right? They say that we need at least 3 paragraphs for a complete essay. And finally, the conclusion is going to be like a summary of all that experience, right? But again, the one we care about here is the first one, argumentative. Let's go to that one. If you have questions, you can let me know in the meantime, but we're going to start understanding as a summary, all right, because this is a short summary. We're going to see this in detail. What we need for almost every essay. But this is, again, we're going to see now characteristics of the first one. But making some small changes, you can apply this one to the other ones as well. So I'm going back to you, Sharai. Let's read the introduction, please. Key parts of an essay, introduction.
Okay. Introduction. Here you'll mention the topic of your essay and its thesis. As you know, essays can't live without a thesis, so a thesis statement is your outline will help you support it in each paragraph of your essay body.
Thank you very much, Sharai. So that is the introduction. Now just to practice, let's analyze punctuation. If you see, I'm going to ask you some questions, all right? Because I think this is clear. And even this is just a summary. We're going to go to the details. You're going to know from the first letter to the last letter what you need to do for introduction, all right? This is just a summary. But I want to practice because I was telling you, right? I was asking some of you if you have questions related to punctuation and so on, right? And so forth. Now let's try to analyze that. And you're going to try to tell me why we're using these punctuation marks over here. All right, there you go. Let's begin with you, Lourdes. Why do you believe that we're using a comma at the beginning over here? Do you remember what is that rule or that element called in punctuation?
Yes, here it's used like a introductory phrase.
Good, very good, correct. Introductory phrase, right? Because here is not the subject. So when you start something and it's not the subject of your idea, then it's going to be an introductory phrase. Again, it's not incorrect like in English that you write it without commas. I told you, right? Even in articles, if you go to BBC, to CNN, sometimes they don't use commas. But in very formal and in very academic writing, and in articles, sometimes it's not that academic. It's formal, it's a good English, but it's not the most academic English that you find in articles and news, all right? But again, in very academic English, you need commas for introductory phrases. Good, thank you very much. Now, why do we have a period over here? And it can be a period or a different mark. We have two options. So what do you say here, Melissa? Why do we have a period over here? And what is the other option to a period?
I think it's because it ends the first idea. The rest is like a more deep explanation of it. But I think that's why, because it's like the end of the first idea.
Okay, and the extra question, Melissa, you're doing it right, that's correct. What other punctuation mark can we use instead of periods? What is the second option that we have that would also be correct? What do you say?
Semicolon.
Yes, correct, right? The semicolon or the semicolon, correct. Very good, thank you, Melissa. So yes, in general, you can say, because this is a complete idea and thesis is the end of the complete idea. And after this, you have a second complete idea, right? And this is only like a phrase. So it doesn't matter. These are second complete idea. So yes, that's the main thing over there, as you were saying, Melissa. Complete idea, you need period or semicolon. And here, of course, the option is going to be a period because the writer thought that there's a relationship, but it's better to establish a limit and to start the next part of the idea with period, which is valid. Here we have a comma as well. I'm not going to ask this one. It's related to what Lourdes said, right? It's also an introductory phrase, right? It's a transitional word, a transitional phrase. And you know that with transitional words and phrases, we are going to use comma before that phrase, and then we have the complete idea, right? So let me delete this a little bit. Okay, there you go, right? That's why we have a comma over there. But let me ask you the next one that is going to be for you, Mariana. Mariana, why do you think that we are using a semicolon or semicolon over here? And why do you think we're using this punctuation mark? All right, I think we're also having some problems, right, Mariana? I hope that you can watch the class later on. I saw that your connection was failing a little bit when you were answering, but let's go to the next student. It's going to be for you then, Sharai. What do you believe about this semicolon so? Because usually with fanboys, we use commas, right? So what do you say?
It's to connect, to join two sentences that show equals idea, same idea.
Correct, correct. And why are we using semicolon and not a comma? Because actually, if I set a comma over here, it's also going to be correct because it says, right, essay can't live without a thesis, comma, so a thesis statement in your outline will help you, blah, 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 blah. So it will also be okay with comma. But why do you believe that in this case, a semicolon is believed to be a best option instead of comma? Because actually, with comma and semicolon, you can connect two related ideas with fanboys, right? If you have a fanboy, it's going to work the same. But why a semicolon in this case? What do you say?
Because in the first part, In the first sentence, we have a comma that is used for an introductory phrase.
Yes, correct. Very good. And yes, that's the answer. Thank you, Sharai. Good. So usually it's because we have a lot of commas. Here we don't have a lot of commas, but it was believed that it's better to avoid using a second comma that is going to make us see this not as a complete idea, but only like perhaps extra explanation. So because of the presentation of the paragraph, it was better to write semicolon because we already used a comma. So this is going to give us a better understanding that this is the very first idea, and this is the second one, right? Because we have that one. If we didn't have this one, the best option would be comma, right? So if we didn't have a comma over here, the best option would be comma instead of semicolon. That's it. Just to verify that and clarify. Good. Body paragraphs, please, Lourdes. Let's read that one, please.
Okay, body paragraphs, there will be a minimum 3 paragraphs in your essay's body. So make sure to include each one in the outline. For each paragraph, write down a topic sentence with an argument related to your thesis and mention all the support, data, facts, examples, and other evidence you use to prove the topic sentence of this paragraph.
Thank you, Lourdes. So this is very interesting. It says a minimum of 3 paragraphs, and that's right. Actually, a very formal essay needs that number of paragraphs, minimum 3. And this is only body paragraphs. So if you realize, you should have at least 5 paragraphs for a complete essay. The introduction, 1 paragraph, 3, right, body paragraphs, and at least 1 for the conclusion, right? So 5 in total. Because of the limit that we have with the words, of course, I'm not going to be asking you that. At least for this third essay, you're not going to require 3 paragraphs because you need more words, all right? You need at least from 350, but I would say from 400 words at least to have this number of paragraphs, but complete paragraphs, right? Complete paragraphs, as we're going to see in a moment. So you need a minimum of 400 words to fulfill these requirements. But perhaps we're not going to get to this point. The final essay may apply this, but we're going to see how you structure your third one. If I see that you manage your word count in a good way, we are going to work with the 3 paragraphs. If not, you're only going to require 2, okay? But that's very important. That's it. I'm not going to ask for punctuation details over there, only conclusion, and that's for you, please, Melissa. Let's read conclusion.
Okay, conclusion. Wrap your essay here. Restate your thesis and summarize the goal of your paper.
Thank you, Melissa. So, and that's it, right? The conclusion is going to be like the last summary, the last details that you mentioned, and the overall information that you talked about in the essay, right? So wrap up. To wrap up is like to conclude something, to finish up something. In this case, your essay, right? It's important to restate the thesis because you have a thesis statement for every essay that you write. And summarize, right, the goal of your paper. It means why you did it. And that's also in the introduction. So actually, the conclusion is very similar to the introduction, but in the conclusion, you're going to give like the last details, summarizing everything you said and restating what you mentioned in the introduction, right? And also you're going to mention why it was important to talk about those 3 paragraphs. Why writing so much about that? You're going to tell us here, right? It was the goal of your paper. And that's it. I mean, again, this is the summary. This is just to get into the topic little by little. Now we have the outline, if I'm not wrong, that we were talking about. Yes, that. Again, this is for you. You know that everything is in classroom. even the next three presentations are already in classroom. But here you can see that this is what you can do if you want to prepare perhaps good essay. And if you want to prepare a perfect essay, that's what we're going to do this week. But for a good essay, this is the outline we need. So we're just going to read the elements that we have over here. I'm going to go back to you, please, Sharai. Let's read this part, please. The introduction and the body paragraph 1.
Okay, introduction. Introduce a topic, state a thesis. Body paragraph 1, write a topic sentence, the argument for your thesis. Support this argument, data, facts, examples. Explain how they related to your thesis.
Thank you very much. Let's go to body paragraph 2 and body paragraph 3. Please, that's going to be for you, Lourdes. Let's read it, please.
Okay, body paragraph 2, write a topic sentence, another argument for your thesis. Support this argument, data, facts, examples. Explain how they relate to your thesis. Body paragraph 3, write a topic sentence, another argument for your thesis or a counter argument. Support this argument or explain why the counter argument doesn't work, data, facts, examples, and explain how they relate to your thesis.
Thank you very much. Right, that's going to be the thesis. Good. And finally, the conclusion, please, Melissa.
Okay, conclusion. A, summarize all main points. B, restate your thesis. C, add a call to action. What you want readers to do after reading your essay.
Thank you very much. So that's it. All right. And again, this is the overall. Don't worry. Again, we're going to work even in more detail. But this is what you should at least have in mind when you're going to prepare your essays. All right. Again, we're talking about argumentative or persuasive essays because that's what we use in most international tests. But you can apply this to any other kind of essay if you, instead of, for example, writing the supporting idea, data, facts, instead of mentioning that kind of evidence, you're going to talk about your examples, right? Your experience, what happened. So what is the first thing that you're going to talk about? For example, right, in the narrative essay, you don't need to prove anything, right? You don't need to convince or persuade anybody. So in the introduction, you're just going to say that you're going to talk about this a specific experience, and you're going to detail perhaps here, instead of a thesis, what are the specific parts of that experience that you're going to tell. After that, you can divide each paragraph for each experience, right? Or each part of the experience that you're going to tell. First, you're going to, the topic sentence would be like the introduction to that idea, right? Then you're going to tell the example itself, and you're going to say, right, why it was part of your experience or some connection to it. The same for paragraph 2 and 3. But in the one that we're going to mention, we need this one over here. So let's try to analyze this before going to the specifics with you. Introduce a topic and state a thesis. So this question is for you, Whitney. What do you believe, Whitney, that we write in introduce a topic? And what would be a thesis for any topic that you can choose, Whitney? What do you say?
Okay, I think that in this first paragraph, have to have a little sentence that we talk about in the next paragraph.
Okay, so it's going to be like a presentation of what we're going to talk about here, right? That's what you're telling me. All right.
Yeah, yes.
What could be a topic? Can you give me examples of topics, Whitney? What is a topic, and what is an example or a couple of examples of a topic?
I think that the topic is what type of thesis will be talked, like, for example, the behavior, the environment, the politics.
Okay, good, very good. So those are topics, correct? Great, we're great so far, Whitney. So a topic could be as broad as you want, right? And actually, a topic is always going to be general. A topic can be those topics that you mentioned, can be a little bit more specific, right? For example, politics, right, in Bolivia, or politicians in Bolivia. You can say that more specific, but it's still general. Good. And what, for example, that is the topic. The topic, let's say that is going to be environment, all right, because that's on trend, and of course that's very important, right? Environment. What is a thesis for environment? What do you say with it? Because the topic is only general, broad, right? It's for everybody. Environment. What is a thesis that you can state for the topic environment, Whitney? What do you say?
Okay, a thesis in this topic could be like the pollution in our environment, or how we can improve our environment.
Okay, okay. So you're going to the specifics. Good, good. You are going to a more local situation, which is correct. And how do you believe, Whitney, or it varies, right? It varies. How do you state that thesis usually, Whitney? What do you do when you state that thesis? How do you write that not paragraph, that sentence? Is it like a statement? Because it says, right, a state. Do you ask that as a question? What do you usually do, Whitney, or what you did when you wrote essays in the past?
Okay, I think that I can to write questions in the first stage of thesis, and we can to do also a small sentence that we describe what I talk about. Like the title could be environment, okay, and the first sentence how we can to improve the pollution in our city, for
Okay.
example.
Okay, okay, good. Just be careful with the order, right? So the question is going to be, how can we, right? How can we improve, right? Or how can we avoid, perhaps, right, pollution? How can we avoid pollution, right, in our environment? In good, very good. Or how can we, like, produce less pollution, right? Or pollute less in our city? Good, yes. And actually, you're right. We have the option of writing questions, and most people, sometimes they believe that it's better to write a statement, but both are going to be possible. Great, thank you very much, Whitney. Again, this is general. We're going to go to the details, every detail that we need for this introduction. We're going to see that it's a little bit more, because at least we need 3 complete sentences, even sometimes 4. But with 3, we're going to be okay. In body paragraph 1, for example, following this logic and coming back to you, Sharai, if we're talking about the environment, and we're going to go into details, all right, because the thesis actually has to be a little bit more personal, because you need to show what you're agreeing with, right? And you need to say, for example, and that's why it's important, right, that we work on education to reduce, right, the amount of pollution that we have in our city. And why is that a thesis? Because you believe that education is one possible solution for the pollution problems that we have. So that's going to be interesting, right? So environment, pollution, and your thesis is going to be that education is going to help us solve that problem. And why? That's going to be developed in paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. So what do you think could be a very good first paragraph, Sharai, if that is the topic and that's the thesis statement? Again, environment, pollution, and education as part of the solution. What would be the first paragraph about, Sharai? What do you say?
It could be that take care of of the environment, it's important because I don't know, I could do a research about about some investigations about how to take care of our environment, something like that.
Good, good, yes. And I'm going to help you because you're doing good. So the first part of it could be, so that we can relate that, the research perhaps is going to take you to the consequences that we've had so far, right? So perhaps the topic sentence for the first paragraph can be related to the consequences of not being careful with the environment, right? And having a lot of pollution. And you can show facts, right? That pollution has increased, I don't know, 20% in the last decade or so, that it's been affecting, right, the public health in general, that we've had a lot of diseases because of the pollution. So you can show that perhaps to show the negative side, and you can show data, right? According to this article, we can see that this percentage, right, is, I don't know, higher and higher. So it means that we need to be careful with that. So that can be one option, because what you're saying is okay, but we need to be a little bit more specific. So if you do research, what could be, and this is also for you, Sharaya, I gave you the idea of, for example, consequences. What can be your focus on your research? Do you want to focus, for example, on the positive side of how pollution has been decreasing, or on the negative side, how pollution even, or it's been increasing, or it's very negative for the health? Or are you going to talk about perhaps, remember that the thesis is related to education, or are you going to talk about how we don't teach anything related to education, and you can look for data also related to that? What would be the specific thing that is going to be in your research, Shai, for the first one?
For this first paragraph, I think it's important to mention about the consequences, the negative consequences, about not take care of the environment.
Great, perfect. Thank you, Sharai. So we can see, right, that the first sentence is going to be, first of all, it's very important to take into account the consequences, right, of pollution, right? Period. You can expand your idea. This is because of this, and that, period. And then you give your supporting ideas, right? Data, facts, examples. All of those are valid. According to this, I don't know, right? To this president, you can say, or according to this last meeting, or according to, I don't know, the prime minister, or this scientific, or this expert, blah, 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 right? This, and that. And you explain the relationship of those consequences and why it was important to talk about consequences for your essay, right? For your specific essay and for your thesis statement. Good. Let's go to the next part, the second one. This is for you, Lourdes. What do you think could be a good second paragraph related to that? Remember, the topic is environment, pollution, and the thesis statement is that education can help us solve that problem. We already talked about the consequences, so we, in a certain way, mentioned why pollution is bad. Everybody knows that, but we need to talk about that, right? We need to show numbers. What is a good idea for the second paragraph, Lourdes? What do you say?
Um, I don't know, maybe talk about
how can you introduce the education here to this? Because if you say the first one was the negative, the second one you're working on that, and the third one could be for another argument or for the counter argument. So perhaps in number 3, we're going to talk about why we believe that sometimes education is not the best solution. But then if we're going to do that as possibility, in paragraph number 2, how would you introduce education over there related to pollution or to the decrease of pollution?
maybe talk about that education could stop, not to stop, but get the pollution less, and that the education will should start with the little ones, something like that.
Good, good. And the last part is very important because you added something interesting. And yes, I agree with you, Lourdes. So just because of this topic, right, and because of the thesis, it's important to mention education because in our thesis, we're saying that education could be a possible solution for the big numbers that we have in pollution, right? So good. And with the little ones, you can be more specific, Lourdes, and you can write in your second paragraph, for example, second of all, right? I don't know, you can change that idea. You can say it's vital, it's crucial, right? It's crucial that we take family and school into account when we want to reduce, decrease, right, the numbers that we have related to pollution. And why is it important to take into account family and the school? Because as you said, right, the little ones are going to make the difference. And you can say that in other words, right? Why? Because we know that children are the future, right, in our of our country. And you give some facts, right? I can show you that, for example, in Bolivia, a country in which the pollution numbers are very, very high, Bolivia doesn't take into account environment education in the curricula, right? So actually, very few schools teach about the environment and the care, right, that we should have related to it. And that could be a really interesting paragraph because you're going to mention the connection between education and pollution. And you're going to show perhaps countries with a very high level of pollution, and you're going to compare that to the level of education. So that's why you believe that there is a connection between those two. And you believe that by increasing the level of education and by, let's say, adding assignments or subjects related to education, right, and environmental education, you can reduce also the numbers in pollution, right? So that can be the second paragraph about. And the little ones are a very important element over there. Number 3 is going to be for you, Melissa. It says that it can be another argument, as the ones we've been working on, or a counter argument. And this is really interesting. What would you think over here, Melissa? It can be another argument or a counter argument. What comes to your mind?
In general, or
for this third one,
applying to
right?
the example.
To the example, to the example. For example, let's make a short summary. We're talking about environment pollution. The thesis is that education can be a good solution to decrease, right, the numbers we have in pollution. Paragraph number 1 are the consequences, right, the negative side of pollution, how is it affecting our lives, our health, etc. Paragraph number 2, we're working on a link, on a connection between education and pollution. And we believe that if we work with family and school, and we teach, right, children how to be, right, educated in an environmental way, it can decrease the numbers. Now, in number 3, what other thing it's important to develop for that idea, or what counter argument can you create against, for example, education? That's more or less the chances that you have in number 3. For that specific topic and thesis statement, Melissa, what can you write in number 3? What do you say?
I don't know if it's correct, but I don't know if it would be an argument or a counter argument, but we can say that even if education, family values, or the education that we have from our families are very important, I think the biggest problem here in terms of pollution are big companies, because the government, or there are not enough policies, or these are not very strict to big companies that are the major contributors, or the major characters in terms of causing pollution. And we can say that even if education is really important, whether it comes from school or our families, the biggest change has to start also in companies, and the restriction or the prohibitions that they have in terms of their production or their processes to the pollution levels gets lower.
Very good. Great, Melissa. Very, very good. Yes, and actually, either is going to be an argument or a counter argument, depends on how you show that information that you said, because what you said, it's perfect. And of course, it's a reality. And I agree with you. And I think that most people here and outside are going to agree with you. Now, it depends in what way, Melissa. If you consider that you're going to mention this as an extra thing, and you're not going to say, for example, but actually education is not that important. What we have to pay attention to is, I don't know, right? The companies, the industry itself. If you do that, it's going to be considered a counter argument. But if you state this idea as, let's say, and also, right, besides working with family, we also have to work with the companies, the industry, because it's going to help us even more. If you do that, it's not going to be a counter argument, it's going to be another argument, right? So it depends on how you show that information, Melissa. Now, it's very important. Of course, now I can see that in your position, Melissa, you wouldn't choose, perhaps I know that you also consider education is very important. But for you, perhaps the thesis statement would be working with that industry, right? With that field, with those companies. So in your essay, the thesis statement would be different. But in case for any reason you chose to work with education, you need to be careful, because if you work with that counter argument and say that it's more important to work with companies than with education, at the end of this third paragraph, because you are convincing someone that you are right, that education is the most important one, at the end of this paragraph, you can say that, but also, right, even if companies are very important, we know that education and that those people that are in charge of companies were children sometimes, right? So they grew up with a mindset. So if we change people, right, when they are children, we are not going to have people in the head of companies that don't care about environment. So if we change people with education, indirectly we're going to be changing people who work in companies, who are very important, because those children are going to become adults, and those adults are going to be, I don't know, right, teachers, businessmen, are going to be anything. And if you, right, educate those people properly, you're not going to have a person in charge of a big company, right, with the risk of polluting or contaminating more, right? So you can say that. And in that way, you are still working with education, and the counter argument of working with companies is more important is being like crushed, let's say, right? Is being like resolved, and you're still working on education. And then you go to the conclusion. That's more or less the idea. All right. I don't know if you have any questions related to that, Melissa, because you were with a doubt, right? If it's an argument or counter argument. Do you have any questions or comments? Let me know, please.
No, teacher, now it's clear.
Okay, great, thank you. And finally, the conclusion. And that's for you with me. What would you do in conclusion with all that information? You already worked with the introduction with me. Now we work with 3 paragraphs, right? 2 arguments and 1 counter argument. What do you say for the conclusion? What would you add over there?
Okay, I usually write the summarize all main points, like for example, in the paragraph 1 talk about take care with your trash, and I write this, and in the paragraph 2 talk about don't lose water, for example, and I write that.
Okay, thank you, Whitney. Okay, so it's very, very like detailed and separated, divided into specific ideas, right? The thing you're telling me. It's one option, right? The second one could be directly summarize first all the information that we mentioned, right? And we can say perhaps, now we understand why it's important to know about the consequences, because in that way we can take action related to that. Also, we know that working with children, right, is very important because they're going to create a mindset that is going to last forever, let's say, right? Or until they are adults. And also we understood that even more important than working with companies and so on, it's more important to work with education because that's going to have a lasting, right? A lasting, let's say, effect. And then you restate your thesis, right? And your thesis was education is very important, right? So, and therefore, we can see that education is really very, very important, right? To change, right? What we have related with pollution. And then it says a call to action, right? It says, what do you want your readers to do after they read your essay? So here you have the option of writing an embedded question or something like a question could be, right? So what is the next step, right? Should we add assignments or subjects to the curricula of the schools, right, of the local schools we have? Should we change, right, the way of education we have, etc., etc.? So that's one way of working. I don't know what you think about that one, Whitney, and what extra things would you add to that conclusion?
Okay, I think that depends what type of essay is. For example, if description of whatever things, I summarize all main points. But when I talk about a decision between two options, I restate your thesis because I think that is better because you have to give your final conclusion of your decision. And for
Okay.
example, and the third option, I think that is better when you do a essay for a particular someone.
Okay, good, great, Whitney. You're right. We're talking about, right, to finish with this part, we're going to work now the specifics. You're right, it depends on the type of essay. I told you, and we saw this, we covered this at the beginning of the class, we're working with the argumentative essay, right? And this essay may have a lot of variations because it's an evidence-based essay that we're working on, all right? We need research or we need to support every idea that we have. Sometimes we're only going to talk about one specific topic and you're going to choose one specific thesis statement and you need to work on that, right? So you're not going to compare anything. But actually, that's the second option. You can work argumentative essays in the way, for example, Whitney was saying, if the main idea of the essay is not showing just one point, but comparing two things, perhaps the conclusion is going to be a little bit different, right? In this case, it's great to work with this conclusion that we have over here because it was only one right thesis and it was one specific topic and one idea. Then that is perfect. But we have, for example, here, right? Has the rise of the internet had a positive or a negative impact on education? So on that way, of course, this is going to be a little bit different, not that much different, because actually argumentative essays in general are going to stay the same, right? Are going to keep the same. So you also need to introduce a topic, but in this case, introducing the topic is answering the question, right? I believe that it's positive, right? Or I believe that it is negative because of this, and that, right? And in an indirect way, you are giving the two ideas. You're talking about the topic and you're talking about the thesis statement. And what is your thesis statement? The answer to this question, right? I believe that it's positive, right? I believe that the rise of the internet had a positive right? Or has had a positive impact on education, you can say over here. Because we can see this, and that, and you can describe your paragraphs. And your paragraphs are going to talk about those 3 supporting ideas, and the paragraphs are going to describe only those 3 supporting ideas. And in the conclusion, of course, you're going to give more emphasis, not to the idea that it's negative, but to the idea that it's positive, right? So it's going to vary a little bit. And in that sense, right, I agree with me. So we can change this a little bit depending on the way you introduce your topic, your essay. It can be only one important thesis statement, or you can work with 2 different possibilities, and you're always going to be on one side, okay? On the TOEFL, for example, on Cambridge, it's not a good idea to be neutral, all right? Don't be neutral, because when you're neutral, you don't have the chance of working with these many details. In many places, they recommend not to be neutral, and not to say, it depends, it can be positive because of this, it can be negative because of that. No, it's better to always choose one option, right? That's very important. In the speaking part of TOEFL, it's also important to choose only one, and in the writing part as well, if you are to choose one option, right? Choose one, even if you believe that it's, right, I don't know, 50-50. Everybody and everything can be 50-50, right? Life in general can be 50-50, but sometimes, right, in life you need to decide and make decisions, and that's hard. So it's important that you go towards one of the possibilities, and you have to defend that possibility with these arguments, and the counter argument can be related to the negative side, right? But at the end, you have to prove that that negative side at the end is not important, that it's mostly positive than negative. Okay, that's just as an idea, because now we're going to start working with the specifics, right? Let's go to the specifics. Before going there, do you have any questions? This was like the presentation for essays in general. Now we're going to go with 3 different presentations. Today we're going to start with the first one, okay? And we're going to start writing actually the introduction today in these minutes that we have. The next one is going to be the body paragraph, a different presentation, and the last one, the conclusion. Perhaps we're going to still work until Monday for this one. That's why we're starting today. Any questions or comments? Let me know, please.
Teacher, sorry, I have to go.
Okay, let me send you this, please, Lourdes. Will you have one more extra, all right, one extra question, sorry, that is related to the midterm, because we're in the middle of this module. It's loading, Lourdes. You're going to see it. Okay, you might see it now. Complete that one, please, Lourdes, and then you may leave.
Okay, teacher, thank you. Bye.
Perfect. You're welcome. Bye-bye. So please let me know, the rest of you, do you have any specific questions related to this first part? Again, we're going to go now to the specifics, but it's important that you know what an essay is, that you know the types of essay that we have, that you know all these details, general details about the introduction, the body paragraphs, the conclusion, and the outline itself, right? What more or less we have to state on those, let's say, parts of the essay that we have. While I'm saving this, I'm going to be waiting for some of your questions. If you don't have any, we're going to start with the introduction. Just give me 1 second, please. I have to save this information, that is Lourdes answers. Okay. And this one over here. Good. So let me close that one, and let me share this once again. So again, as you can see here, for the ones who were here a little bit late, you have all the presentations already in Unit 3, the structure. This is the one we finished, definition and types of essay. Now we're going to go to presentation introduction. Let's start with that one. And to start with that one, we are going to write examples. I already shared this with you, but again, we didn't work examples yet because it was only the introduction. I'm going to share it now. It's in the chat, actually. Let me copy and paste it. So please go over there. The link is in the chat. We're going to start writing our introductions. Step by step. Don't worry, don't do it anything yet. We're going to see everything here. There you go. Okay, so this is the first step, and actually this is the first sentence. Again, this is going to vary, depends on the test you're going to take, and actually this is not for a specific test, right? This is argumentative essay, and this can be applied to almost any kind of essay. I would say 75 or 80%. Let's read this one, please, Sharai. It says step 1, and let's read actually all the information you have there, please, Sharai.
Okay, teacher. Introduction. Step 1. Hook your reader. Your first sentence sets the tone for the whole essay, so spend some time on writing an effective hook. Avoid long, dense sentence. Start with something clear, concise, and catchy that will spark your reader's curiosity. The hook should lead the reader into your essay, giving a sense of the topic you're writing about and why it's interesting. About overly broad claims or plain statement of fact.
Thank you very much, Sharai. So this is very important. Now we're going to write this. What is hook your reader? What is the first sentence? And actually, I'm going to be checking your essays like this. This has to be the first sentence for this essay that you're going to learn with me. Hook your reader. How do you hook something or someone? It's to catch, right, that person or that thing's attention, let's say, by saying something really interesting or showing something really interesting, right? So you should use these kind of things. It says something clear, concise, and catchy. What is something catchy? You can not exaggerate, perhaps, but you can say very interesting numbers, very interesting ideas. If you're going to talk about pollution or you're going to talk about environment, you need to show something interesting related to environment. You need to show something really interesting related to pollution. If you're going to talk about technology in education or education and technology, you have to show your first sentence. First, you need to mention the topic, and that topic needs to be shown in a catchy way, in an attractive way, okay? So you can say, for example, nowadays, again, this is perhaps not going to be too catchy for all of you, but it's an example of how you can write this. Nowadays, right, technology is everywhere, right? Or you can say, we cannot live without technology, right? Because every step, right, we make, well, technology is there. But that first part can be very important. That idea of technology is everywhere, we cannot live without technology, that's considered as something very interesting or important. Or you can show numbers. You can say, right, lately, right, it was said that 95% of our interaction with people, right, happens through technological devices. So that's also really interesting. In that way, what you're doing, you're showing something catchy in the sense that you're showing an interesting number, 95%, right? Of course, I'm making up that information right now. And you're talking about devices, right? So I'm talking about my topic, which is going to be devices or technological devices. And I'm trying to catch the reader's attention by saying that 95% of the interaction that we have is via those devices. So try to do the same now, please. Go to that file. This can be related to the topic you're going to write for next Monday, or it can be something different. It depends on you. Anything that comes to your mind, please. Give me a first part, all right, and a first sentence in which you show me the topic you're going to talk about, and you present that sentence in a catchy way, with interesting information, with interesting numbers, with interesting facts, etc. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it, please. If you have any questions, let me know, but that's the first instruction. In this first part also, we're not going to use yet the sequential transition words, all right? First, second, firstly, don't use them yet. That's going to be for the body paragraphs that we have. This first idea can be only with some time transition words that you have. For example, as I told you, right? Nowadays, lately, or something like that. But don't use those sequential words yet, because we're going to be use them for the body paragraph. For the second sentence in the introduction, yes, we're going to use some transition words for the second sentence and the third sentence. But for the first one, you can start just like that. A very simple transitional word or phrase, but no sequential yet, all right? Don't start your essay with first, because that's going to be, again, for the body paragraphs we're going to be using.
Just one sentence, right, teacher?
Only one sentence, please, Whitney. The first one for the introduction.
Okay.
Great. I'm going to see how you're doing. If you have some problems, again, just let me know. All right. Remember that you're working more or less right in the same way. But again, a sentence is going to be like a complete sentence, right? And it has to be, of course, complete sentence. Well, what does it mean, right? You need to have a good subject over there. You need to have a reference of that idea. And again, it needs to be catchy. All right, it needs to be catchy. So not in every case is going to work the same, right? Not in every case it's going to work the same. Think the best way of stating your sentence. Actually, you are free to do it in any way, but be sure that it is a complete sentence, that it is a complete idea that is mentioning the topic that you want, all right? And that is like that, right? A hooker. What is a hooker? Is going to be like a catchy phrase. Okay, I'm going to give you a different example. I'm thinking of examples to give them to you as well. If your topic is going to be about, again, I'm thinking about education, right? Because I work on that field, so I have more examples related to that. If your topic is going to be, let's say, education, and you know that later on your thesis statement is going to be, I don't know, that education is a good way to reduce. We talked about pollution. Now we're going to talk about crime, all right, robbery. If you believe that, you can say, right, that, I don't know, right, countries with very high level of education are thought, right, or are told to be the countries in which the crime rate is very low. That can be one idea. And that can be, in other words, considered catchy, quotation marks, because you're relating education with robbery or crime. And that can be interesting for some people. Okay, that can be one idea. The other one can be, right, exercising every day, right, can, I don't know, right, reduce this possibility or the possibility of getting this disease by, I don't know, 90%, right? So you can say, according to some people, right, or according to some, I don't know, scientifics or to last research, and that, right? Working out every day can reduce the risk of this and that. That can be also a catchy thing, because I noticed that your topic is going to be exercising, working out, and perhaps it's going to be related to diseases and some illnesses or problems that you may have, right? That's a second example. And like that, if it's going to be technology, the example that I gave you, right? Nowadays, we cannot live without technology, because everything we do in terms of education, work, and even, right, family interaction is linked by a technological device. That's a different example. Okay, so in that way, you know that the subject can be different. Okay, I'm going to start reading some of yours. Again, I told you, right? This is going to be step by step, but it can be a little bit hard. Don't worry, I'm going to help you out. Let's read yours with me. Seems to be really interesting. Let's read your first sentence of your introduction.
Sorry, teacher, I can't hear you.
So can you hear me now, Whitney?
Yes.
Okay, let's read please your sentence with me.
Okay, the Egyptians had found the answer about what happens after life.
Okay, okay, good. This is interesting, right? This is interesting because you know that everybody asks, right, to themselves, right? What happens after life, right? What happens when we die? So it can be really, really interesting for many people. So I think this is a good hooker, right? It's a good sentence. What do you say that is the main topic over here with me? That's my question over here, because it's great. What is going to be the topic of your essay?
The answer.
The answer.
What's happened?
So this is going to be your topic about the answer, right? About what happens after life. Okay, but remember that right now it seems to be okay, very good. Also, it's catchy, it seems to be great, but remember that either this is going to be your main essay or not, you need to have some evidence, right? It's because here you're going to work in an evidence-based argument. So it's going to be important that you show evidence, right, related to this. And if your topic is the answer, right, to what happens after life, what could be the thesis statement? Because so far, this is the topic. But what is going to be the thesis statement? The thesis statement here has to be something that you believe, that you can affirm in a certain way with me, because you're going to defend in this argumentative essay, you're going to defend that position that you have. What is your thesis statement, or what would it be? We're going to work it later on, but to understand this better. What is
like research or investigation?
But in a certain way, for example, right, if my topic is education, and I say, right, in my example, I said something like, let me remember, Yes, countries with a very good education, right, are likely to have a reduced crime rate. Let's say that was my hooker, all right, my hooker, my first sentence to catch the people's attention. My second idea, we're going to learn that in a while. It's going to be something like I'm going to be context, or I'm going to give some numbers related to that idea. And my last one is going to be my thesis statement. My thesis statement is something that I say with a lot of certainty. And I can say, for example, therefore, with all that information that I mentioned, I believe that by improving the educational system that we have in our country, we can also work and reduce the crime rate that we have here, right? For example, that is my thesis statement. I'm showing my certainty that by working with education, my main topic, I'm going to reduce this other thing that in this case is crime rate or robbery or something like that. In your case, what would it be your thesis statement if this is your topic in general?
Okay, I think the Asian people and the past culture give us some answers about what happened after life.
Okay, okay, good. So you can mention that in a very, you need to be very precise and very certain, right? If you say could, sometimes here can be very, very weak, right? But if you say right, that's why, and therefore I believe that ancient, right, culture, Asian peoples, as you say, because you can say peoples if you're talking about the ethnic people, right? So certain ancient, I don't know, right, people gave us, so you can use simple present because that's fact, that's information. Asian people gave us very important clues and information of what happens after life, right? And your arguments are going to be related to that, showing evidence. Perhaps it's going to be a little bit difficult to talk about evidence when we talk about afterlife. That's a little bit tricky here. That's a little bit, it can play against you, Whitney. So you have to be careful with that. But if you can like give that evidence in a very interesting way, it can work. But be careful with working with abstract ideas as afterlife, because again, it's going to be very hard to show real evidence to convince the reader, right? Just as a comment and let's say recommendation. Do you have any questions in this part? We haven't gotten to the thesis statement yet, but I'm asking that here, Whitney, because the topic seems to be very abstract, just because of that. Any questions or comments? Let me know, please.
Okay, the thesis is complicated. Okay, no tengo, and I don't have questions.
Okay, good. Yes, don't worry. We're going to get to the thesis, but again, we're practicing now, right? For practicing, this is a very, very good hooker because it's really attractive, all right? Of course, happens after life is very, very attractive. But be careful, again, in the next part of the essay, which is going to be the thesis statement and the body paragraph, because this statement or this topic is going to be very, very hard to support. Okay, just because of that, you can rethink that idea. But thank you, Whitney. I think we're working good, but try to rethink the topic. Okay, just that.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
Good, you're welcome. I'm going now to you, Sharai. Let's read your sentence, please.
Okay. It's the scientists discovered how music affects our mood.
Okay, good, good. I will only do something here, Sharai. It's really interesting. Music and mood. That's a very, very interesting connection. My advice and suggestion here, Sharai, is to try to show me one of those ways in which music affects our mood. And you can look for a very interesting information, right? You can say that according to some scientists, if you're having a bad day, just by listening to music, you can feel better, right? And that's scientifically proven. So try to look for ideas like that, a little bit more specific, right? Just a little bit more specific, Sharai, because this is great, but this how music affects our mood is very general. It's interesting, but try to show me a little bit about that. You're going to talk about details on the body paragraph, of course, but try to tell me again one of those ways in which music is going to affect my mood. So I need to feel a little bit identified, right? So you can work with sadness, you can work with happiness, you can mention one specific type of music, and you can say, right, scientists have discovered that classical music, right, can help you improve your concentration when you study. You can say that, right? Or that listening to this type of music is going to make you feel happy, right, in a certain way. Or it's going to, I don't know, right, help you when you feel depressed. So if you give me that a little bit more specific information, it's going to like attract a little bit more, right, attention of people in the sense of that hooking or attracting, right, the people's, let's say, wanting to read. That's my only recommendation there, Sharai. Do you have any questions or comments? Let me know, please.
Yes, teacher, but I can, as you mentioned, I can talk about those details. I don't know about happy music, sad music, or something like that. In the paragraphs are given
Mhm.
more details. In case
Yes.
I specific those details you said, I don't know how music motivate to do exercise. All my essay has to be focused on how music motivate the to do exercise. I don't know
Yes,
if you understand me.
you're right. Yes, no, I get your idea, and you're right. You're right. To avoid that, and again, what I want you to do here is perhaps more than going to one specific thing, try to mention one example, but you can make clear that that's just one example, right? And you can say, for example, I don't know, right? Or the thing that I was saying, right? Classical music can help with this. And you can add extra information over there to make clear to the reader that that was just an example, but you're going to be talking about other ways in which music can affect your mood or can help you in very specific situations, right? So you can say, for example, scientists have discovered that music, right, mood and concentrations are very related. And you can give an example, perhaps, right? For example, and that can be part because the first idea can be a one or a two sentence part. And you can say, for example, right, when you need to study, it's said that classical music can be really important for you to be better concentrate, right? So perhaps you can do that, Sharai. Keep a very broad idea. Not only mood, you can also add the idea of improving your concentration or something like that to give even more examples and give a specific example to attract a more specific, let's say, public over there so that you can talk about broad ways of how music affect your mood and you are not reduced, right, to only one. So I agree with you, Sharai, but I don't know if you can do that, perhaps just adding a little bit more and giving one specific just as an example of what the readers are going to be seeing in the rest of your essay. Okay?
Okay, teacher. So I have to write or I have to tell you?
No, try to write it. Try to write an idea and perhaps next class or the next part, because we're going to keep working with this. You're going to tell me or you're going to show me what you did, and we're going to try to restructure if necessary. Okay, just write it for the next one, Shanae.
Okay, teacher.
Okay, good, perfect, thank you. Now, Melissa, let's read yours, please.
Mine is how productivity can be improved if employees are happier.
Okay, good, good. This is interesting. The only thing is that perhaps this starting with how is not going to be the best option, because the topic seems to be really interesting, talking about productivity, right, and employees being happier. But that how productivity can improve, it's going to be like more like a title, all right, than perhaps the first sentence. In the first sentence, we need actually that to look as a sentence itself. Of course, how productivity is the subject of this idea, but it's not like a very fluent yes, not subject, but idea that you can have. Perhaps you need this to be a little bit more organic, and try to say something as mentioning someone, I don't know if it's scientific or a magazine or even yourself. You can say, or talking in general, right? Society, right, has shown us that this is related to this and that, right? Or most companies, right, have experienced, right, the increasing of productivity, or you can say, yes, have shown that productivity has improved or can improve if their employees are happier. So in that way, you're talking about some companies, right? Or many companies, or the industry in general, or this field has shown us. So if you give me that idea at the beginning, it's going to be more organic, and it's going to be more likely to be the first part, because like this, it's okay. But again, it's like only one title it would be. I don't know if you have questions or comments related to that, Melissa. Let me know, please.
Yes, teacher, my internet is kind of slow. Can you repeat the last part, please? The part of if I think it was every type of company or industry.
Yes, yes. Instead of saying, right, how productivity, because even that sounds like a phrase or like a title. So to change that idea of that being so, I don't know, right? It's like a title, because you cannot connect the second idea to this one. It's like a title. So to change that, just say either. It depends on you, Melissa. You can say some companies have shown us that productivity, right, improves. So you can say that even in present, in simple present, because you're showing me something that is certain, that is for sure. So some people or many or some companies or many companies, right, have shown that productivity can or improves, right, when employees are happier, more or less like that. All right, that's more or less the idea. Many companies have shown that the productivity improves when employees are happier. I don't know if you were able to listen to that, Melissa.
Yes, teacher.
Okay, perfect. So try to restate it like that, please, because on the next class, well, right now I'm going to finish with, oh, Marine is not here. Okay, I'm going to try to give you extra explanation, but try to work on that correction, please, Melissa. You can do it now, you can do it for next class, because next class I'm going to continue with this explanation, and you're going to show me how you worked it, all right? Good.
Okay, teacher.
Great. Now, to finish with this, again, that was the first one. Now, this is going to be like little homework, okay? Because you need to do some research. So please, Sharai, Melissa, Whitney, also I'm going to work with this in class with the rest of your partners, but it will be a good advantage that you do it as an assignment, as homework, because you're going to have time to look. It's only one paragraph, or not one paragraph, one sentence, okay? So it's not going to take more than 5 minutes, and 5 minutes, it's a lot. Step 2, we're going to finish by reading this, and you're going to help me, please, with me. Let's read step 2, please.
Okay, give background information. Next, give your reader the context they need to understand your topic and argument. Depending on the subject of your essay, this might include historical, geographical, or social context, an outline of the debate you are addressing, a summary of relevant theories or research about the topic, definition of key terms. Don't give too much detail. You can mention points that you will return to later, but save your evidence and interpretation for the main body of the essay. How much space you need for background depends on your topic and the scope.
Sorry. There you go.
Okay,
Sorry,
no.
Whitney, go ahead.
And the scope of your essay.
There you go. Thank you very much. I made a mistake. That was overboard. So what I wanted to do, thank you, Whitney. Now, I wanted to go here. Escape. There you go. Now, please, I'm going to tell you. For example, you, Whitney, first try to look for a different topic or try to see how you're going to get evidence to this. But what you have to do is try to, if you're going to keep this topic, you have two options. You can either explain what you mean when you say afterlife. What is afterlife? Because of course I understand that, right? From this Western way of life, Western perspective, right? Christianism and so on. But there are many, many definitions and concepts related to afterlife. So perhaps you can talk about that. What do you mean by afterlife? Okay, that's one option. The second option, of course, if you don't change this one, but the second option would be working an outline of your debate. It means you're going to tell me a summary of what you're going to talk about here with me. All right, you can say, I'm going, right, in this essay, I'm going to talk about this, I don't know, right? How the Egyptians understood afterlife, how, I don't know, right, Sumerians, right, understood, I don't know, this concept as well. And finally, I'm going to work on a contrast between those two perspectives, right? That's the third option, Whitney. So you can either specify and clarify what you mean by afterlife, because it can be very broad and very confusing for some people. And after, or the second option is try to give an outline. It means you have to tell me what your paragraphs are going to talk about. Do you have any questions related to that, Whitney? Let me know, please.
Not yet.
Okay, good, thank you. Let's try to do that for Wednesday, please. In your case, I'm going to go in the order I started. Sharai. Here, for example, you can do what I was telling you. If you're specific and you follow my first recommendation, which again, the negative part or the contradictory part is what you say, and you're right. The readers are going to believe that that's going to be the only topic, or you're going to be reduced to talk about that. But if you choose to give only one example here, and you say, right, scientists have discovered that, I don't know, classical music help us with our concentration and with our mood, then to show people or readers that you're not only going to talk about that, you can talk about, as Whitney, an outline. And you can mention, right, in this essay, right, in this essay, I'm going to be talking about, right, music, right, general music and the connection with the mood as the first part. Secondly, I'm going to talk about, I don't know, right, specifically classic music or classical music, sorry, and their connection with concentration. And finally, modern music and why it doesn't have good effects on people, you can say, something like that. Okay, so if you do that, your first sentence or your hooker can be very specific, but by giving the outline after that, you're going to make clear to the readers and you're going to expand your limits, right? And you're going to say, hey, I'm not only going to talk about classical music, I'm also going to talk about this, and that. So you better read if you want to know about that. So that's my advice for you, Sharai. You can work on a more specific hooker or try to expand it a little bit, as I told you, mentioning also concentration or some other benefits that music could have. And then you talk about the outline. It means very generally, tell me what your 2 or 3 paragraphs are going to be about. I don't know if you have any questions related to that, Sharai.
No, teacher.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And finally, with you, to finish this up very quickly, it's the same for you, Melissa. But in your case, if you want to talk about an outline, is very, very good. But productivity can be a concept that is related to only one field. So you can clarify what you mean by productivity, because we understand, right, to be happier. And I understand in a broad way what productivity is. But to be clear and to be sure that your readers are going to understand this idea, instead of an outline, right, telling me what your paragraphs are going to be about, instead of that, you can give me a definition of this key term, as it says here, right? Definition of key terms. Or you can give me two definitions, right? But I think this is the most important one here, productivity. And that could be your second sentence. So again, this is only one sentence. I don't know if you have questions related to that, Melissa, before asking you in general.
I don't think so, teacher. So I should write a definition of productivity in my first paragraph.
Yes, in your first paragraph, you have two options, Melissa. You can write the outline in the sense that after this sentence, you can tell me, on this essay, I'm going to talk about this, and this. One sentence, right? You can have that in one sentence. That's one option. The second option, if you believe that productivity is something very specific and people should know about this definition in a better way, the second sentence, instead of the outline, is going to be the definition of this key term, productivity, which is a recommendation that I may have. Okay, but you have the two options. Okay, and it's part of the first paragraph. You're right. We're still on the first paragraph, introduction. This was the first sentence, and the second sentence is going to be this extra information, the context. Okay, so in general, thank you, Melissa. Sharai, Melissa, Whitney. For Wednesday, you can work the second step, which is only the second sentence. Work either on outline, or perhaps if you change your first sentence, and if you're using definitions that are, or words that are kind of hard to get, use the definition key of term, but only select one of them, okay? Because if you select more, it's going to be too much. Only one of them, because it's only going to be one sentence, and that's it. Any questions to finish, please let me know. If not, I'm going to ask you to please, as always, fill out the survey. It's loading now. It has one extra question that I added over there. And that's it. On Wednesday, we're going to continue with introduction. Sorry, it failed. We're going to continue with the introduction, but I'm also going to add the body paragraphs, okay? Again, please, I'm going to ask you this favor. Wait for me just 10 seconds. I'm going to leave the meeting. I'm going to go back because it's not letting me share the poll. Give me please 10 seconds. Okay, perfect. Now I think it's recognizing that I'm going to be the host, if I'm not wrong. It's not showing. Please give me some seconds. No, it's not showing me the poll. All right. Just in case, please take a look. I don't know if it was Melissa, Sharai, or Whitney. One of no, I'm the host. Okay, there you go. Yes, sorry. I'm going to relaunch it now. Again, the internet. So let's fill this out, please. And let's finish today's class with that. Okay, see you tomorrow in the conversation. Have a good night and take care. Bye-bye, girls.
Bye, teacher.
Bye, see you. See you tomorrow.